Hi, welcome to Being Mindful. I'm Susan, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor who enjoys sharing mindfulness meditations with as many people as I can. I'm glad you're here today. And if this seems like something that you would enjoy doing more often, I hope that you'll consider subscribing. You can do that by clicking on the little boat in the corner. Today, what we're doing is doing a meditation on sound. I often describe mindfulness as intentional awareness on the present moment without judgment. And sound is a great way to practice that intentional focus on what's happening within any given moment and to not be judgmental about it. Sometimes we experience sound as something that's kind of irritating or frustrating. And this gives us a chance to really explore on purpose what it is like to listen to what's happening outside and within us. So let's get started. And our focus today is going to be a focus on sound. So, with mindfulness meditation, we can focus on anything that we want to. And what we're doing is training ourselves to intentionally focus on what's happening in the present moment, hopefully without judgment. And so sound is a great way to practice because as long as our hearing is okay, we are often surrounded by sounds. And a lot of times as we're walking through our day, we don't really pay attention to them. So this gives us a chance to intentionally notice what's happening around us and to not engage in judgment or stories or criticism or irritation around what we're hearing. Things that might normally feel like something that's getting in the way of our meditation actually becomes incorporated into the meditation. So we'll get started by moving. I like to encourage us to move because meditation doesn't mean that we have to sit stock still. So you can move your body if that is something that would feel good to you during this time, or you can settle into a still position. Any of that is all good. I'll invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you because it can help you really hone in on the sounds because you have less sensory input with your other senses. But if that's not comfortable, you can keep your eyes open but lightly gaze at a spot in front of you. And as we enter this time, we can just acknowledge that maybe a lot has already happened today. And maybe there's activity that we're headed into through the rest of the day. But for right now, we give ourselves permission to let that fade into the background and focus on what's happening right now. And perhaps you're already noticing some sounds. So maybe we start with just a scan, a sort of a broad focus on everything we can take in without necessarily digging into one particular sound. And if you can, really focus on the sensation of listening and hearing, and do what you can to not go all cognitive. So we don't have to label it in our head as to what the noise is or what's causing it. We don't have to decide whether we like it or we don't like it. Just So allowing the mind to play as it flits from sound to sound. And then we can choose to focus on particular types of sounds. And of course, other sounds will continue to happen, but we begin to allow those to fade into the background as we pay more attention to particular types of sounds. When I'm meditating around sound, I will often start with what I can hear that is outside the dwelling that I occupy. Right? So right now I'm in a house, and many of us are in our houses. So what can you hear that's happening outside in the world? Depending on where you are, you might hear aspects of weather, wind or rain. You might be near traffic, so you can hear cars coming and going. Sort of the rise and fall as a car approaches, meets you where you are, and then travels in the opposite direction. You might hear birds, either your own or the birds that you can hear from my end. Maybe an airplane flies overhead occasionally. And of course, there's the sound of my voice, which is happening outside your house, right? But you're hearing it inside your house. And with these outside sounds, they tend to be ever changing, right? So even though the birds are kind of constantly chirping, the actual chirping sound is different from moment to moment. Traffic ebbs and flows. Maybe there's construction or yard work happening. But it's pretty rare that any of that is a constant hum. It's usually a movement of sound. And it can be fascinating to listen to. And then we can come a little closer to what we are paying attention to as we focus on sound. So if we're in a house, an apartment, a building of some sort, we are likely sitting in a room within that building. And so before we bring the focus in too close, we can pay attention to any sounds we can detect that are inside the building, but outside the room. If you are alone in your space, you might not hear evidence of other humans or animals, but perhaps there is machinery, a dishwasher. Maybe there's a TV on in another room, a washing machine. And if you do share space with other living beings, you can listen for evidence of them. Maybe you hear a toilet flush or footsteps or voices. And if outside sounds or thoughts come into awareness as you're attempting to focus on these nearby but not immediately adjacent sounds, you can notice where your attention went and gently bring focus back to the sounds you can hear outside your room, but inside your home or building. And if there isn't anything in that in-between space that you can hear, you can notice that silence. And then we can come to our third layer of sound, which is what we can hear in the room that we are occupying. Sounds that are outside our bodies, but close by. If you have a laptop that occupies your space, there's likely the sound of a fan, a humming that comes from these electronic devices we have around us. And maybe you didn't turn your notifications off before you started, and you hear an occasional ding or vibration. And very likely, if that is a sound that you hear, there's a physical response, an urge to know what's behind that sound. And so if that's you, see if you can notice the actual sound of the notification without attaching it to a story, a need, without thinking about what lies behind that sound. And then there may be other sounds. Maybe there's an animal in your space or another human being within the same room that you occupy. Maybe there's a fan overhead that you can hear, or heating or air conditioning. And once again, as we focus on these nearby sounds, the further away sounds may sometimes creep into our consciousness. Or maybe our minds are even getting bored with all of this listening. And when you notice that your attention has been pulled elsewhere, you just gently bring it back to what you can hear inside your room. And then we come to a fourth, more intimate level of sound. And that is the sounds within our bodies, both voluntary and involuntary. We make all kinds of sounds. There are stomach gurgles, the sound of swallowing and breathing. Our hearts are beating. And if you pay attention, when you move your body, it makes a sound. So try swiveling your head from left to right and notice these little creaks. We can actually hear the muscles moving. So try moving your body in different ways and really listen to the sounds that are made through that movement, not just by rubbing up against whatever you're sitting on, but the sounds that are actually happening with the movement of muscle, with the movement of bone. Right? There are little pops. I love when I do a good head roll and move the head back against the upper back and shoulders. That sound that it makes is just fascinating. And if you're not paying attention to it, you'd miss it. So we'll broaden our focus once again and allow the mind, the ears, to just listen to whatever comes. Wiggling fingers and toes, noticing the sound that that makes to you, and preparing ourselves to reflect and notice what this was like as we begin to return to whatever the rest of the day brings. And if your eyes have been closed, you can reopen them. And now we come to, I think, my favorite part of any meditation, and that's the little bit that happens after the meditation ends and before we get back to our lives. You know, meditation and mindfulness can be something that we do all the time. And when we take the time after a meditation to reflect on our experience, it helps us to carry what we learned into the rest of our lives. So I hope that you will take a moment to figure out what that is for you, and then to leave a comment and read the comments of others. And that way it can deepen your experience of meditation and this practice of being mindful. If you're not already subscribed, I hope that you'll do that. And here at the end, I will leave some next steps for you. You can watch another video or try out a playlist that is related to this topic. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope that you have a great day.